that narcissist is deeply shocked, right? Whether you believe it or not. They are deeply shocked to realize that they cannot fool you anymore, or because for the longest time, their entire survival strategy depended on one massive assumption. They thought you were dumb. They thought you were gullible. They thought they could look you right in the eyes, you a demonic lie, spin the narrative, and you would simply swallow their fraud just to keep. They confused your empathy with blindness. They mistook your patience for stupid. They believed that because you gave people the benefit of the doubt, you would never be able to see behind the curtain. But now you see right through their act, see straight through their entire facade. They are fully exposed to you. You are no longer decoding their behavior the way you used to spend hours trying to understand why they said one thing and did another. You used to replay conversations in your head, searching for some hidden meaning, some reasonable explanation. Now, you do not need to decode anything more because you are looking directly at the absolute. You are asking for proof instead of clapping for their. In the past, they would tell you a story, applaud, comfort them, you would take their side without question. Now, you ask them to show you, you ask them to explain the time. You ask them why their words never match their action. And that single shift terrifies them more than anything else you could ever say. You stopped protecting their fake image and started calling out their demonic reaction to defend them to your friends and family. You used to make excuses on their behalf. Please describe what happened and let people draw their own. And watching you wake up, watching you refuse to be a participant in their lies is completely paralyzing. I am telling you from experience and from years of study. I am Dan, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional, and welcome to my channel, Falling In. Before we break down exactly how this shift is destroying their fragile ego, if you want to know exactly what kind of narcissist you are dealing with, my free 2-minute quiz is linked right down in the description and in the pins below. Take it right now and understand precisely what has been happening to you. Blend your intuition to understand why they are complete. In this moment, you have to realize what they tried to steal from you in the first place. You have always been highly intelligent. You did not always feel that way during. The narcissist knew this the very second they met you. That is exactly why they worked so hard to disconnect you from your own memory. They've had to suppress your inner intelligence with constant chaos, constant gaslighting, and constant stress just so they could feel powerful in comparison. A person who trusts their own judgment is very difficult. So they made sure you never trusted your judgment. Every time you noticed something strange, they told you that you were imagining. Every time you asked a simple question, they turned it into a 3-hour argument. Every time you tried to set a boundary, they made you feel guilty for even having needs. They looked at you like a machine with a remote control. Push the guilt button, and you would apologize for things that were never your fault. Push the rage button, and you would back down immediately just to avoid. Push the silent tree, you would chase them, begging for a crumb of it, wondering what you did this time. Planned it for a long time. That remote control worked perfectly. They knew exactly which buttons to press and exactly how long to wait before pressing the next. It became almost automatic for them, a script they could run without even thinking about it. Bland the remote control brake. But something incredible happened. Your spirit woke up. Somewhere along the way, whether through a small moment, through a conversation with a friend, or simply through time, you reconnected with your own inner intelligence. Simply broke. They pushed the guilt button and you just stared at them. Nothing happened. No apology, no scrambling to fix things that were never broken. You simply looked at them and waited. Banned, they pushed the rage button and you calmly walked away. No shouting match, no tears, no desperate attempt to make them You just left the room, and the silence that followed was louder than anything they could have screamed. Lums, they pushed the silent treatment button. And what happened? You actually enjoyed the peace and quiet. You saw it as a gift rather than a punishment. For the first time in a long time, you could hear your own thoughts without interruption, without walking on eggshell, without waiting for the next explosion. They expected you to stay trapped forever. They believed that after being mistreated so many times, you would eventually come crawling back to their feet, begging for scraps of affection, grateful for even the smallest kindness. Instead, you remain completely silent, and it is eating them alive from the inside. They thought that in your desperation, you would do something wrong, something they could point to and say, "See, I told you they were unstable, but you did nothing wrong." And that is exactly what is making them look like a total loser in front of anyone who is paying attention. Planned. They are slowly realizing that their entire life was dependent on you, not the other. All those years they spent convincing you that you needed them, it turns out they needed you far more than you ever needed them. If you remember the exact moment you stopped reacting to their games and finally trusted your own intuition again, drop the words "I saw through the mask" in the comments right now. Let that moment be recorded somewhere because it matters. And while you are down there, if you are finding this episode validating, make sure you hit that subscribe button so we can keep exposing these toxic patterns together, one video at a time. Men, their panic. What is really destroying them right now is the realization that their entire strategy depended on panicking you before they ever had to panic. Every single manipulation they used was carefully designed to make you believe that life without them was simple. They isolated you slowly and quietly so that you would come to believe they were your only savior. Maybe they discouraged you from spending time with certain friends. Maybe they created tension with your family. Maybe they made themselves seem like the only person who truly understood you. Piece by piece, they narrowed your world until it revolved almost entirely around them. They exhausted your nervous system until simply surviving one more day started to feel like an achievement. You were not living. You were coping. You were managing crisis after crisis. And somewhere in that exhaustion, they convinced themselves that your staying meant they were irresistible. It never once crossed their mind that you stayed because you had empathy. You stayed for hope, sometimes hope for children, sometimes hope for the relationship itself, sometimes hope for the version of them you once believed existed. You stayed because you have a beautiful conscience, one that made you want to believe people, one that made you want to give second and third and fourth chance. They confused your trauma bond with blind loyalty. They thought your inability to leave meant you approved of how you were being. They never understood that trauma bonds are not proof of love. They are proof of psychological injury. But then you did the one thing they were never prepared for. You learned to survive the very loneliness they were threatening you. You discovered that your own company was actually much safer and much more sacred than their company ever was. The moment you realized that, their greatest weapon became completely useless. They can compete with your friends, can compete with your family. They can even compete in some strange way with a new relationship because that gives them something to react against. But they cannot compete with the absolute peace you found without them. They simply cannot compete with silence, with stillness, with a life that no longer revolves around managing their moods. Planned. That is the part they simply cannot. They sit alone in their pathetic misery, asking themselves questions that have no comfortable answer. How did someone I completely isolated still manage to rebuild a how did someone I broke down piece by piece still learn to trust themselves? How did someone I convinced was nothing still find a way to walk away without looking back? Because they are so shocked, so completely thrown off balance, they have to do what all exposed and pathetic manipulators do. They have to run and they have to lie. Narcissists are cowards. Rate Narcissists tend to disappear or sabotage things near the end of a relationship because they do not have the courage to admit the real reason. The dynamic shifted. Admitting the truth would require a level of self-reflection they are simply not capable of or not willing to attempt. They cannot say, I am panicking because you are no longer easy to fool. That sentence would require them to admit they had been fooling you all along. They cannot say, I am furious because you have started noticing the difference between my words and my behavior. That would mean acknowledging that their words and their behavior were never aligned in the first place. They will not say, I am terrified because you now ask for proof instead of believing my performance. Admitting fear is simply not part of their playbook. Blend. They cannot say I am leaving because my cheap apology no longer works without any real change. That would require honesty about how empty their past apologies actually were. Blind. They cannot and will not say I am exposed because you have become calm enough to catch my unacceptable lies. Exposure is the one thing they will fight to the very end to avoid. They cannot say I am running away because you no longer confuse my anger with authority. Somewhere along the way, you stopped being intimidated by volume and started paying attention to substance instead. So what do they do instead? They do exactly what cowards do. They change the story. They make it look like you became too difficult, too suspicious, too sensitive, too emotional, too damaged, too demanding. Notice how convenient that list is. It always centers on you, never on them. But notice what they always leave out of that story. They never say what made you suspicious in the first place. They never mention how many times they lied before you ever started checking their stories. They never say how many times they disappeared, how many times they abandoned you emotionally or physically before you finally stopped feeling safe around them. They want people to hear your anger, but they do not want anyone to hear about the years of severe disrespect that created that anger in the first place. They want the world to see the reaction without ever seeing the provocation. Claim your self-respect. No, if you can resonate with what I am saying right now, it is because you were disrespected, and I would like you to claim that truth back for yourself. I would like you to say this affirmation out loud right where you are sitting to respect myself. Say it again with me. I choose to respect myself. Drop those words in the comments below if you feel them in your bones. Back to them. They want people to believe they escaped you, when the absolute truth is they escaped accountability. Running away from consequences is not the same thing as winning. Disappearing before the truth catches up to them is not strength. It is cowardice dressed up as confidence. If you have watched them spin these exact half-truths, tricked them in order to play the victim, leave another comment. Write the words narcissists are cowards right there in the comment section. Let it be seen. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so right now so you can join a community of survivors who see the truth clearly together. Apathy terrifies them. Now let me be very clear about something important. A narcissist will absolutely bow down to people with money, power, and high status. They will gladly flatter anyone who can give them a shortcut to a shinier image. They love attaching themselves to superficial success stories. But here is the key difference. Genuinely fear those people. The person a narcissist truly fears, the person who keeps them up at night in a cold sweat, is a person with quiet indifference. It is you, because you stopped caring in the way you used. You look at their drama now and you feel absolutely nothing. That is exactly why they are raging. Before this shift happened, a narcissist was surviving on your reaction. You have a massive, beautiful energy inside of you, and they were feeding off it like a desperate parasite, feeding off a host. Your fear was their food. Your confusion was their food. Your need for closure and explanation was food. But when true emotional distance enters your body, their whole game dies in. Now they can try to smear your name to other people. They can act happy in public. They can attach themselves to some new wealthy or impressive source of attention. But nothing moves inside you the way it used to. This is the part that narcissists simply cannot survive because indifference does not give them a stage. It does not clap for their performance. It does not cry for their cruelty. It does not chase their absence. It does not beg for their love. It does not sit there decoding their behavior as though there is some deep mystery to solve. Genuine emotional distance looks at them, sees a small, insecure person, and simply says, "This is exactly who they are," and then moves on with life. That is why your calm indifference is infinitely more dangerous to a narcissist than your hatred could ever be. Hatred still means indifference means they no longer exist in your at all. Bland the smear campaign, their last card. When they realize you cannot be fooled anymore, they play their very last card. They try to destroy your credibility with the outside world. They call you unstable. They call you bitter. They call you dangerous. They do not do this because any of it is true. They do this because they need people to doubt you before those people ever get the chance. Plenty. Why does this matter so much to them? Because you are living proof that they were never as powerful as they believed themselves to be. If they were truly as powerful as they claimed, you would still be under their control right now. The simple fact that you escaped, the fact that you can see their fraud clearly, means their control always had limits, and those limits have now been reached. Every single day that you remain silent instead of defending yourself publicly, every single day that you refuse to chase them for an apology or an explanation, every single day that you continue building a peaceful ground life without them, you become living evidence that their greatest manipulation was never as strong as your decision to finally choose. You are no longer their victim. You are the chosen witness to their fraud. You are the one person who saw behind the mask and lived to tell the story with a clear mind. And that reality alone is enough to destroy the image they have spent years trying to build. Lend how to protect your peace going forward. Now that you understand why they are panicking, let us talk about how you protect the progress you have already made. Because healing is not a single moment, a daily practice. First, keep your circle small and honest. Surround yourself with people who tell you the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. A narcissist thrives, so clarity from real friends and family is one of the most powerful tools. Second, stop trying to make sense of their behavior. You will never fully understand why someone chooses manipulation over. Trying to solve that puzzle keeps you mentally tied to them. Instead of asking, why did they do that? Start asking, what do I need to do to keep myself safe and steady? Third, document everything if you are still dealing with them in any capacity, whether through shared responsibilities, children, or work. Written proof protects you from their attempts to rewrite history later. Allow yourself to grieve the relationship you thought you had, even while celebrating from the relationship you actually had. Both feelings can exist at the same time, and neither one cancels out the other. And fifth, invest in your own stillness. Sit with silence instead of running from it. The silence, now let it feel like proof that you finally have your own back. Choose yourself and heal. If you want to make sure you never fall for these demonic tricks again, and you need to completely understand the exact type of narcissist you walked away from, please do not stay in the dark about it. Go take my free 2-minute quiz right now. It will analyze the exact behaviors you survived and give you the clear, direct answers you need in order to protect your peace permanently. The link is right below in the description or in the pinned comment. Take a moment right now before you close this video and take that first small step toward full clarity. You were never the problem. You were simply the first person who finally refused to keep playing a broken game. And that refusal is exactly what is keeping them awake at night while you finally sleep. Bamendi. I will see you in the next one.